on a morning in 2012, in the quiet pine forest on the outskirts of Linyi City, a horrifying discovery shattered the peaceful atmosphere. The mutilated body of a man, bearing signs of brutal torture, lay concealed beneath a layer of dry leaves, unraveling a mysterious and bloody case. The traces left behind indicated that this was no ordinary murder. Behind it lay deep-seated hatred, complex relationships, and the dark secrets of the underworld. The investigation led authorities through a series of terrifying events where greed, jealousy, and cruelty pushed beyond all limits. Who was the perpetrator? What motive drove them to such ruthless violence? Join us on a journey to uncover the haunting and dramatic truth behind this case. A horrifying discovery beneath the dry leaves. On the peaceful morning of September 30th, 2012, in the rural Shandong region, Mr. Wang Daqiang, a middle-aged man, followed his routine of entering the Linyi pine forest to forage for mushrooms and firewood. The fresh air, chirping birds, and sunlight filtering through the leaves made the forest appear serene as always. Mr. Wang walked while scanning the thick layer of pine needles, hoping to spot clusters of mushrooms growing between the tree roots. However, after a short while, he sensed something was amiss. The silence was pierced by a strange foul odor seeping through the crisp morning air. Mr. Wang frowned, paused, and tried to identify the smell. At first, he thought it was the carcass of a dead animal, a not uncommon occurrence in the forest. However, the deeper he ventured, the stronger and more nauseating the stench became. Anxiety and discomfort welled up, but his curiosity compelled him to move forward. As he approached a wide bushy area where the smell was strongest, he noticed disturbed leaves and soil. A vague fear crept into his mind as he bent down and gently swept aside the dry leaves. Immediately, a horrifying sight emerged, a pale human leg protruding from under the leaves. Mr. Wang froze, his body trembling as he realized this was not an animal carcass but a human body. His heart pounded, his eyes straining to make sense of the partially buried body beneath the soil and dry leaves. The corpse had large bruises on its skin, and the stench of death filled his nostrils. The victim's disheveled clothing was smeared with dirt. Mr. Wang dared not approach closer, yet he couldn't look away from the horrifying scene. With trembling hands, he hastily pulled his phone from his coat pocket. His voice quivered with fear, but he managed to remain calm enough to call the police. After the call ended, Mr. Wang tried to steady himself, stepped back a few paces, and waited at a safe distance. Within less than 30 minutes, the wail of police sirens shattered the forest stillness. Several patrol cars arrived at the forest's edge. Investigators, police officers, and forensic staff quickly secured the scene with yellow tape to mark the discovery site. The forensics team conducted a preliminary examination while detectives began gathering information. Signs of violence on the victim's body. The victim was a man found lying on his back. The body had begun to decompose slightly and showed signs of insect activity. On initial observation, clear signs of violence were apparent on the body. This raised questions for the police. Why was the victim hidden under such a thin layer of leaves? It seemed the killer was either careless or in a hurry to dispose of the body. Another question was whether the victim was murdered at the scene or his body was dumped there. The tranquil pine forest was now cloaked in a chilling sense of horror. The victim appeared to be a young man, with pale skin and disheveled hair. Forensic experts noted numerous bruises on his body, concentrated around the temples and cheeks. The victim's nasal cavity was swollen and dark red. Dried blood and mucus left yellowish stains on his skin. His nose appeared broken or displaced, and his face was distorted, with fragments of bone visible, indicating the force of the blows had caused severe injuries. The victim's lower lip was torn with a wound about 2 to 3 centimeters long. stretching from the corner of the mouth to the middle of the lip. Large bruises of dark purple to green hues appeared on the abdomen, indicating that the victim had been punched or struck multiple times with a fist or a hard object. Several long scratches on the body, possibly caused by fingernails or a sharp object, formed open wounds exposing the flesh underneath. The clotted blood on the wounds had turned a dark brown, forming rough, mottled patches on the victim's pale skin. The victim's neck also bore severe bruising, with dark red and purple marks resembling the impressions of tightly gripping fingers. Areas of skin that had been forcefully abraded showed signs of congestion due to restricted blood circulation. The most severe injuries were under the jaw and at the front of the neck, where the blood vessels had become blocked and turned dark red. This indicated that the victim had been strangled for an extended period, preventing blood from circulating. Additionally, there were small scratch marks on the neck. Forensic doctors deduced that the victim had tried to use their hands to escape the attacker's grip. These scratch marks appeared under the jaw and on both sides of the neck, clear signs of desperate struggle. The scratches were long and thin, with some areas bleeding slightly. The victim's eyes displayed conjunctival hemorrhaging, with small red spots in the whites of the eyes, commonly seen in cases of strangulation or asphyxiation. This provided evidence that the strangulation caused not only external injuries but also internal damage, particularly severe oxygen deprivation to the brain. The injuries extended beyond the head to the victim's hands and legs. Both hands were tightly bound with a sturdy rope made from natural fibers, approximately 1 centimeter in diameter. This type of rope, known for its durability, is commonly used in everyday applications. The rope showed no signs of fraying, suggesting it may have been newly purchased for the purpose of restraining the victim. After a thorough examination of the scene and the body, investigators uncovered several key details that helped clarify the course of the crime. Clues from the faint tire marks. The victim was wearing a light-colored t-shirt and dark blue jeans. Their white sneakers, with a simple design, breathable mesh fabric, and rubber soles, showed signs of being dragged. The toe and heel areas of the shoes were noticeably worn, particularly the toes, which had small tears exposing the inner fabric, as if the victim's feet had scraped against gravel and tree roots. The shoelaces were loose and entangled with bits of dry grass. The victim's jeans were covered in dirt, especially around the calves. Large tears in the fabric, with frayed edges, indicated strong friction against sharp stones and rough terrain. Small pieces of leaves, clay, and gravel clinging to the pants supported the theory that the victim had been dragged violently over a long, uneven path. The light-colored t-shirt was now coated with a thick layer of dirt, evidence that the victim had been dragged a considerable distance. The body was found on a gentle hillside, about 300 meters from a trail. This secluded and difficult-to-access location suggested that the perpetrator deliberately chose an obscure place to dispose of the body. From the trail leading deep into the forest, drag marks were visible on the ground, occasionally interrupted by rough terrain, broken branches, and large stones. These marks formed a continuous path, illustrating the perpetrator's effort to conceal the body. In addition to the drag marks, the perpetrator's footprints were found in the soft soil near the body. The uneven footprints, with some pressed deeply into the ground, indicated the perpetrator exerted significant effort to drag the body over difficult terrain. Larger footprints were seen near the trail and extended toward the main road. Analysis suggested the suspect was an adult, likely wearing sneakers or soft-soled shoes. During the search for evidence, the police discovered a black Honor mobile phone lying about 20 meters from the body. In the bushes, the phone screen was shattered, and the body was bent out of shape, indicating it had been smashed against the ground or a hard object multiple times. The act of destroying the phone suggested the perpetrator deliberately damaged the device to prevent the retrieval of information. At the crime scene, The SIM card from the phone was notably missing. Police determined that the SIM card holds crucial information, such as contacts, call history, messages, and network data. The disposal of the SIM card indicated that the perpetrator had meticulously planned to erase any trace linking them to the victim. This action suggested that the perpetrator was cunning and capable of professionally covering their tracks. The trail leading into the Linyi forest was narrow, only about 2 meters wide, allowing just enough space for a small car. The road surface, composed of clay and sand, made travel difficult. On this path, police discovered faint tire marks. These tracks did not seem to belong to vehicles that frequented the area, supporting the hypothesis that a car was used to transport and dispose of the body. Authorities interviewed Mr. Wong, the man who first discovered the body, and several curious locals gathered at the scene. However, none of them could identify the victim. After the preliminary examination of the scene was completed, the body was taken to the forensic lab for a more detailed analysis. Tattoos and the theory of retaliation. Forensic experts observed that the victim's teeth were mostly intact, with slight wear on the molars. The cranial sutures had begun to fuse, consistent with an adult. The victim's pelvis and long bones were fully developed, with no signs of severe illness, suggesting the victim was in good health prior to death. Based on these factors, the victim was identified as a male, aged between 28 and 35, in normal health, with no signs of aging or notable medical conditions. To determine the time of death, experts conducted various analyses based on the body's state of decomposition. The body was in a moderate stage of decomposition, with some soft tissues still intact but showing initial signs of decay. Environmental factors were also considered. The weather in the Linyi suburbs at the time was mild, with temperatures ranging from 15 to 25 degrees Celsius, 59 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. This cooler temperature slowed decomposition, helping experts more accurately estimate the time of death. Insect activity also provided important clues. The types of flies found on the body were species typically present during this specific decomposition stage. From these combined factors, the forensic team concluded that the victim had died approximately 3 to 4 days before discovery. The condition of the body indicated that the victim had endured prolonged torture before death. Multiple bruises were concentrated on the abdomen, chest, and head, suggesting severe beatings. New bruises overlapped older ones, highlighting the perpetrator's cruelty. Examination of the soft tissues revealed severe damage around the bruises, with signs of inflammation and necrotic tissue, indicating a noticeable decline in the victim's health. In addition to bruises, the victim showed signs of severe dehydration. The digestive system analysis revealed an almost empty stomach and intestines devoid of food, indicating the victim had been starved for an extended period, weakening their ability to resist. The cause of death was determined to be anaphylactic shock and multi-organ failure, compounded by injuries from brutal beatings, dehydration, and prolonged torture. A particularly disturbing detail noted in the forensic report was the victim's genital organs, which were crushed and atrophied. Experts speculated that this was due to the perpetrator inflicting deliberate trauma. This detail led authorities to hypothesize that the motive for the crime might stem from hatred or jealousy. The brutal assault on the victim's genital area suggested that the perpetrator not only wanted to kill but also to humiliate and degrade the victim, reflecting a sick psychological need to assert dominance and power. Upon further investigation, authorities proposed an additional theory. The perpetrator's brutality might reflect psychological trauma they experienced in the past. This trauma could stem from romantic relationships or contempt for the victim, leading to the execution of such extreme violence. The victim was approximately 1.72 meters tall, with a face that had been severely damaged, making identification difficult. The only significant identifying feature was a large tattoo on his back. The tattoo, measuring 30 by 20 centimeters, depicted a snake coiled around a cross. The intricate black design could serve as a crucial clue in the investigation. Victim's identity, a challenge for investigators. The police conducted an investigation in Daituan village, located about 2 kilometers from the Linyi forest where the body was discovered. The village had a population of around 500, primarily engaged in farming and livestock. Residents frequently ventured into the mountains to gather mushrooms and herbs, especially during the rainy season. When interviewed, no villagers reported anything unusual in recent days. This led to the hypothesis that the perpetrator disposed of the body at night to avoid detection. Local authorities confirmed there had been no missing person reports within the past 6 months. However, during interviews, police learned of a young man in the village matching the victim's description. Lu Chengguang, 29 years old. Chengguang was orphaned as a child and lived with his grandparents. Due to a lack of educational opportunities, he became a drifter and was known locally for his delinquent behavior. A neighbor, Mr. Chun, mentioned that Chengguang often wandered around causing trouble but hadn't been seen for over a week. Police visited Lu Chengguang's home for more information. His grandparents stated that on September 20th, their grandson mentioned going to the city to find work with a friend from the village and hadn't contacted them since. When they called his phone, no one answered, or the line was disconnected. The grandparents also mentioned that Chengguang had several tattoos on his back, but couldn't recall if one was a snake coiled around a cross, as he seldom took off his shirt and their eyesight was poor. The police dialed the phone number provided for Lu Chengguang. The phone rang, but no one answered. They then went to the home of Mr. Wang Mingjing, who was believed to have accompanied Chengguang. After verification, police contacted Mingjing, who confirmed that Lu Chengguang was safe. This eliminated earlier suspicions. The investigation in Daituan village yielded no useful results. It appeared the victim was not a local resident. Therefore, the police decided to expand the investigation to neighboring areas. To accelerate the search, they collaborated with relevant departments, cross-referencing data on missing persons from surrounding districts and publicizing the case details, including the victim's identifying features. In the past 3 months, Linyi City recorded only 3 missing person reports. 2 were women, and the third was a middle-aged man with behavioral control issues. Based on this information, the police formulated 2 theories. Either the victim was not a resident of Linyi City, or he was someone with very few social connections, whose disappearance went unnoticed by family and friends. While awaiting responses from the public, the police continued parallel investigations. Based on the victim's clothing, they deduced that he was not from a lower economic class, likely of at least average means, and probably not a manual laborer. The large back tattoo suggested a tendency to express individuality, not strictly adhering to traditional norms. The police also suspected the victim might have been involved in complex social activities or a gang. Authorities surveyed tattoo parlors near the area where the body was found, hoping to uncover clues. According to tattoo artists, the image of a snake coiling around a cross symbolizes allure and mystery, representing the conflict between holiness and desire, a battle between good and evil. Men who choose this design often have strong, aggressive personalities and may even be affiliated with criminal gangs. An unexpected call, the victim's identity revealed. Despite gathering information on the tattoo symbolism and potential clientele, police were unable to narrow down specific suspects. On the second day, after publicizing details of the discovered body, the police received a call from a man named Wang Junai, 46 years old, residing in Muji County, Linyi City. Mr. Junai reported that he had a nephew named Wang Diqing, 28 years old, who had a large tattoo on his back matching the description provided by the police. Wang Junai explained that Wang Diqing had lost his parents at a young age and was raised by his grandparents. At the age of 20, Diching left home to seek work in the city and rarely returned. Mr. Junai recalled once seeing his nephew shirtless, revealing the tattoo of a snake coiled around a cross. When asked about the tattoo's meaning, Diching gave a vague answer, saying he got it because he thought it looked good. After recording Mr. Wang Junai's information, the police immediately contacted Wang Diching's relatives and invited Mr. Junai to the station to help identify the body. Despite the victim's face being severely damaged by the assault, the basic features were still recognizable. After a detailed examination and confirmation from the family, the body was conclusively identified as Wang Diching, 28 years old. With the victim's identity confirmed, the investigation into his life began. According to his relatives, after leaving his hometown, Diching moved through various locations before settling in Luzhu district, Linyi City. He had no formal education or specialized skills and often worked as a porter at different sites. He was unmarried, and his family was unaware of any romantic relationships. Based on information from his relatives, police visited the rented room where Diching lived before his death. A search of the room revealed no signs of a struggle or foul play. A small amount of cash was still in the pocket of his jacket. Neighbors described Diching as a reserved person who rarely interacted with others, only offering a nod when necessary. However, he frequently brought groups of male and female friends to his room for loud drinking sessions. Despite the noise, neighbors tolerated it out of fear of Diching. To others, Diching appeared as a tattooed, cold, and aloof young man. They believed he was involved in complicated social circles and was not a simple person. Notably, a few days before Diching disappeared, a large, heavily tattooed man visited him 2 to 3 times a day. This man did not reveal his identity, but his aggressive and hostile demeanor led neighbors to suspect a serious conflict between them. Recognizing the complexity of Diching's social relationships, the police divided into smaller teams to investigate places where he had worked, such as the local market where he did porter jobs and the bus depot where he worked as a security enforcer. The investigation revealed that Diching was a member of a criminal gang known for using violence to display dominance, intimidate new businesses, extort money, and engage in psychological intimidation. The girl locked in the bathroom, the perpetrator revealed. Through various sources, police identified the leader of the gang as Ma Wei-zhou, a 46-year-old man with a criminal record for theft and assault. He had served 2 prison sentences and was released in January 2009. Currently, Zhou was on the authorities' watch list. Upon further examination of surveillance footage near Diching's rental home, police discovered a recording from 10:30 p.m. on September 24th, 6 days before the body was found, showing a young man matching Wang Diching's appearance and clothing. After zooming in and receiving confirmation from relatives and neighbors, police confirmed the person in the video was indeed Wang Diching. At 9:31 p.m. on September 24th, as Wang Diching was about to turn into the alley leading to his residence, a black car suddenly stopped beside him. A man stepped out, grabbed Diching by the shoulder, and forced him into the vehicle. The surveillance footage showed Diching struggling desperately to escape but failing. The car then sped away, disappearing from the camera's view. Although the car's route and destination could not be determined, police managed to record the vehicle's license plate number. Further investigation revealed the car was registered to Ma Wei-zhou, 50 years old, the older brother of Ma Wei-zhou, who had prior connections with Wang Diching. When police showed Ma Wei-zhou's photo to Diching's neighbors, they confirmed that Ma Wei-zhou had frequently visited Diching's residence, participated in drinking sessions, and had been the one banging on Diching's door and shouting for him in the days before he disappeared. At this point, suspicion toward the brothers Ma Wei-zhou and Ma Wei-zhou grew stronger. Authorities decided to summon both for questioning. Despite the evidence, the 2 brothers adamantly denied knowing Wang Diching. Their blatant lies only deepened police suspicion. police conducted searches of the brothers' homes and the black car, hoping to uncover more clues. In the trunk of Ma Weijian's car, authorities found dried blood stains and a recently cut piece of rope. Ma Weijian's house was spacious and isolated, designed with excellent soundproofing. In the bathroom, police discovered a young woman with her hands and feet tied, her mouth taped shut, her face pale and gaunt. She lay on her side, naked, with bruises and bleeding wounds covering her body. After being rescued, the woman identified herself as Liu Meiwei, Ma Weizhou's lover. Meiwei explained that both she and Wang Diqing were abducted by the Ma brothers on the night of September 24th. They were locked in a room and subjected to brutal torture. Diqing was viciously beaten. Ma Weizhou and Ma Weijian struck his face with sticks, punched his stomach, kicked him, and strangled him. They starved Diqing and continually abused him until he was too weak to resist. The torture lasted nearly 2 days, and Diqing eventually died from his injuries. Meiwei was also beaten, though less severely. She was given food and water at regular intervals, but she was confined to the bathroom for all activities until the police arrived. Continuing the search of Ma Weijian's house, police found contraband cigarettes, drugs, homemade firearms, and various weapons. Blood samples from the car trunk were tested and confirmed to belong to Wang Diqing. Comparing Liu Meiwei's testimony with the surveillance footage and blood evidence, the Ma brothers finally confessed to their crimes. A romantic affair with the gang leader's girlfriend, the root of the crime. Wang Diqing was a member of the gang led by the brothers Ma Weizhou and Ma Weijian. This gang had no fewer than 10 members, specializing in protection rackets, debt collection, displays of force, and continuous recruitment. Their territory spanned local markets, informal bus depots, and entertainment venues. Gang members were also required to take on side jobs to contribute money to the organization. The group's internal dynamics were relatively stable until a month before the incident, when rumors spread that Wang Diqing was romantically involved with Liu Meiwei, Ma Weizhou's girlfriend. Upon learning of this, Ma Weizhou was furious. Instead of acting immediately, he decided to follow them and gather evidence by secretly photographing Diqing and Meiwei spending the night together. Once he had enough proof, Zhou began planning his revenge. On the night of September 24th, the Ma brothers drove the black car owned by Ma Weijian, kidnapped Wang Diqing, and later abducted Liu Meiwei. After taking the couple to Ma Weijian's secluded house, they began torturing both of them. Diqing and Meiwei were forced to watch each other suffer helplessly. Wang Diqing was beaten savagely. Ma Weizhou and Ma Weijian struck his face with sticks, kicked him in the abdomen, and strangled him. They also starved him, causing his health to deteriorate rapidly. The pinnacle of their cruelty came when Ma Weizhou forced Liu Meiwei to bite and strike Diqing's genitals, promising to spare her life if she complied. To survive, Meiwei reluctantly obeyed. The torture lasted for nearly 2 days, ultimately causing Diqing to die from his injuries right in front of Meiwei. After Diqing's death, Liu Meiwei was tied up and locked in the bathroom. That night, the Ma brothers drove the car to the pine forest on the outskirts of the city to dispose of Diqing's body. Ma Weijian stayed in the car while Ma Weizhou dragged the corpse deep into the forest and buried it hastily. Meiwei admitted that her secret relationship with Diqing was real. She explained that she had lived with Zhou like a wife for a long time, but the relationship left her feeling trapped and hopeless. Although she was afraid to leave Zhou, she was drawn to Wang Diqing's gentleness and charm. Diqing was initially hesitant, but eventually succumbed to temptation. They dated secretly, using disposable SIM cards to avoid detection. Diqing had promised to take Meiwei away from the Ma brothers to start a new life, but their plan was discovered too soon. After arresting Ma Weizhou and Ma Weijian, police expanded the investigation and summoned all members of the gang. They were charged with smuggling, possession of firearms, drug trafficking, and various other crimes. Due to their brutal crimes, The Ma brothers were sentenced to death in the Intermediate Court, and the sentence was carried out in May 2013. This case shocked public opinion. The horrific actions driven by Ma Wei-zou's blind hatred and jealousy became a prime example of the thin line between rehabilitation and recidivism. Stories of brotherhood destroyed over a woman are not uncommon, but the cruelty and brutality displayed by the Ma brothers truly crossed the boundaries of humanity. What are your thoughts on today's case? Leave a comment below to discuss with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Decoder Box channel to catch more thrilling cases from around the world. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.